Double knitting, how to cast on. There are several ways of casting on in double knitting. This video will show you what I think is a good basic multi-purpose cast on for a beginner, a beginner in double knitting. If you're new to knitting, I wouldn't recommend starting with double knitting, but somebody who's new to double knitting. So this method is terrific for your first project, which might be a scarf, it might be a coaster, a placemat, a washcloth. Those are all good to start with. I would say you should practice your double knitting on something small till you get your tension and your method of holding the yarn down correctly before you move on to more advanced projects. So this video will show you a very good basic beginner method. How do you do it? I take my 2 strands of yarn, color A, color B, kind of a green and a blue in this particular case, and I make a slip knot. When you are casting on, whatever your pattern calls for, you have to double those amount of stitches. So if your pattern calls for casting on 20 stitches, in fact you have to cast on 20 of each color. So in fact you're casting on 40 stitches. In this method, there is my slip knot. These don't count in this particular method because they are going to get pulled off at the end. So now I do what is similar to a long tail cast on method, and then I do a reverse of that long tail cast on method. So how do I do it? I take my hand like this, I grab both strands of yarn, I put my thumb and my index finger in and spread them apart. Okay, so I've got color A on the bottom on the thumb, and I've got color B on the index finger. So I start by taking from, so this is the bottom strand and the top strand. This is the bottom strand and this is the top strand. So I'm going to take from the bottom of color A, I'm going to grab the bottom of color B and pull it through, just like a long tail cast on. Now you're going to do the reverse. So that means you're going to take the top of color B, and then you're going to swing around and grab the top of color A and pull. And now I have one of each color, so 2 stitches cast on. And you always have to have the same number in each color. So we do that again. The bottom of color A and the bottom of color B, and then the top of color A, or sorry, color B, and the top of color A. I'll do it again. So now I have 2 of each color, or 4. Bottom of color A, the bottom of color B, and then the reverse, the top of color B, grab the top of color A, pull through. One more time. Bottom of color A, bottom of color B, top of color B, top of color A. And you do that until you cast on the appropriate number of stitches. So I will just go ahead and do that until I'm going to cast on 20 of each color, so that means I have 40. I will do that. There are my 20 stitches in each color, so a total of 40 stitches, not counting the little slip knot I did at the beginning. When I do the first row, when I knit back across the first row, I'll knit through my required number. In this case I'm saying it's 20 of each color, so 40. So I'll knit through all of those, and then when I get to this guy at the end, I'll just slip it off and pull it out. And that is how I do the cast on for double knitting.